Good afternoon, everybody. This is Delivering Liberty, brought to you by Unprecedented TV. Apologies for the delay. I had a bit of a tech issue as I logged back into this software that I'm using. I hope everybody is okay. I see people already in the chat already. Carl Mids, leave my rights alone. Thank you. Who else? Stephen West, welcome. I'm sure there's currently live streaming from Unprecedented's Twitter and YouTube, and also my Delivering Liberty YouTube channel. Hope everybody is well today. So I thought that we're going to have a guest on eventually, Jacqui Deevoy, who was quite funnily one of my other ex-colleagues on Unity News Network, which is due to return, I think, in early October or mid-October, I think, until David Clues sorts out the actual return date. But I thought until then, I think Jackie's going to join us in about 20 minutes. I thought I'd go on because obviously I only do 1 week of this show. And it's quite amazing when you just watch the dust settle of certain people had it, and how rhetoric can change within only a week. And I've been, debating certain people online, and it is quite amazing how. Like Nick Fuentes here, for example. I mean, it seems as though his own fan base are now in rebellion to Nick Fuentes. People don't know Nick Fuentes is an American online political commentator. He would be described by establishment media as a far-right, pro-Nazi, the usual buzzwords, racist, hate-mongerer, etc. Young guy. I think he's only, how old is he? He's about 27, I think, I'm going to say. Could be more or less, something around that 38. 28, I think. So he's getting what he calls his generational rise. And it's quite funny how his rhetoric changed within only a week. Has it been 2 weeks now since Charlie Kirk's assassination? The day before, he was literally cussing out Charlie Kirk, obviously before his assassination. And it's very strange. I said here, Nick Fuentes is just churning out slop now. He has practically returned to the left versus right slop. Now even U-turned on his thoughts on Russia and NATO, citing Russia is now the aggressor. All pinpointed the change after the death of Charlie Kirk. Is he simply terrorized? He may get the same treatment as Kirk, or is it something a bit more sinister? There has been definitely a noticeable change. So, sorry, someone's trying to call me, but I'm live at the moment, and it's interesting to actually lay down. Now, Nick Fuentes laid down the arguments of both sides of it simply being a transgender, disgruntled individual who hates Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk was actually very moderate. He wasn't even really an extremist in terms of, he was a small C conservative Christian guy. But I have my thoughts on Charlie Kirk. As outrageous as this may sound to some, especially after the death of Kirk, is that I stand by my opinion that really what Charlie Kirk was doing was essentially subversion on behalf of a foreign nation. He was essentially going on to campuses from university to university in America, and he was converting people to essentially brainwash young, impressionable students to essentially the ultimate goal is to love Israel, to support Israel, no matter what their endeavors are. He was paid by wealthy Zionistic Jewish billionaires to do so, such as Bill Ackman, for example, who was rumored that was very angry with Charlie Kirk. I mean, let's just lay it down. I mean, what I'm talking about is the subversion that I'm sure people have watched it, people who have been awake to much of this, the lies that has been told to us throughout the decades, especially narratives on 9/11 and 7/7 in the UK here. The Russia Ukraine narrative, the COVID narrative era, and many of us know who are paying attention, and not the people who are easily distracted by Sports Ball or easily distracted by the X Factor and other reality slop shows, is that people who actually sit down and actually watch and notice things and don't rely on these talking heads to tell you the news. I know obviously I'm doing that now technically, but I know most of the audience here, they're probably more intelligent than me and do even more research. I just happen to be doing nothing else and I can do this show. Or I'm stupid enough to do the show in the first place and put my neck out there. But the type of subversion that I'm talking about is, let me put this on. Let me put the audio on. Where's my, to show you what I mean. This is obviously from the 1970s. This is a ex-KGB agent defector who came from the USSR and came to America, and basically at his time went on various talk shows at the time to discuss how espionage actually works. It's nothing like the James Bond films. It's nothing as over the top and dramatic as that. Yeah, I know. I've not put it on yet, Khalid, yet. So it's actually how subversion works. It's a long investment. Usually it starts at academia, at universities and colleges and schools, etc. And it basically plants a subversive seed in the mind of these young people. Yeah, this seen it years ago, says leave my rights alone. Yeah, I know. But a lot of people fail to make the connection, is that this is essentially what Charlie Kirk was doing. This is what I'm going to put on, and what Yuri Bezmenov is talking about is what people like Charlie Kirk and Gad Saad and many other, I mean, even Nick Fuentes, he was banned from talking at universities. He was not allowed to, because obviously what's the difference between Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes is that Charlie Kirk was a slave to Israel, was paid by Israel, whereas Nick Fuentes was against Israel. And that's the only difference, really. And even in academia, this is how we talk about the massive influence that Israel has upon the West, where not only is it in obviously politics and media and banking, but also academia. It's in schools. Obviously, we know about the whole council culture. We know that in America right now is that people are getting kicked out of unis and even deported in some cases because they are speaking against universities. It's the only thing. Trump and his administration are supposedly for free speech, but yet if you speak against Israel, you are censored. So let's just put this on. This is when, like I said, please keep in mind, this is what Charlie Kirk was doing at the time.
Subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. This is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of...
May I do mention that obviously Marxism and Leninism, those individuals who created those, really Leninism is a continuation from Marxism, but obviously those two individuals, Lenin and Marx, or Marx's real name, if I can just type in, because I forget myself. Karl Marx's real name was, where is it? Was Marx Mordecai was his real name. Marx Mordecai. Levi Mordecai, was his real name. Karl Marx, obviously a very Jewish name. Lenin, of course, was Jewish too. So just
of
perhaps
at
needs to be
least
kept
3
in mind.
generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. Most of it is done by Americans to
Charlie
Americans,
Kirk.
thanks to lack of moral standards. Ideological subversion is the
So this has been done. Obviously, I spoke about Gad Saad before, him being a university lecturer in both Canada and America. And for years, he was subverting students. And obviously, and he was admitted to be an ex-Mossad agent. Obviously, his laws of espionage was then lapsed because of the statute of limitations. So he got away with it, essentially. So we have these individuals who are Charlie Kirk, after Trump, was one of Israel's biggest assets. For him to turn on Israel would undo all of the years of subversions of students by Turning Point USA. Keeping in mind, we have Turning Point UK here, led by the UKIP leader, Nick Tenconi. Subversion of student minds is a powerful technique. Because obviously, it's what did Starting used to say? Give me a child from 0 to, what was it? From 0 to 10, and I will shape them into the man of the future. Their version of it. I'm butchering the quote, but it's something along those lines. So let me just put this out to you. So the defenders of it's not Israel, which now just it's just by bizarre, shocking coincidences, is now Nick Fuentes and his sycophant followers, although a lot of them are actually turning on it hardcore. I saw a post that, where was it? That this was a post that on Nick Fuentes' Telegram channel. So keeping in mind, Telegram is obviously where most likely his most hardcore supporters would be. He put this post up. He said, July 2025, Charlie Kirk works for Mossad. August 2025, Charlie Kirk works for Mossad. September 9th, when he was killed, 2025, Charlie Kirk works for Netanyahu. 1 week later, he was killed on September 10th. It's the day before. Charlie Kirk works for Netanyahu. 1 week later, I can think of 150,000 reasons why Israel killed Charlie Kirk. This is the logic that Fuentes is using to say that, how can you say that it was Israel that killed Charlie Kirk when before everyone was saying that Charlie Kirk works for Israel? Well, it's very easy, but this is not a difficult. This is why I can't believe. And you can see here. I don't know if you can see at the bottom of my screen here. It has the voting, whether it was liked or disliked or laughed at or loved or whatever. The highest ranking thing is downvotes. It has 2.5 thousand downvotes. So that even his most hardcore followers are not agreeing with Nick Fuentes. Because the simple thing is that, and it's not difficult to understand this. The reason why Israel had to knock off Charlie Kirk was because Charlie Kirk was starting to speak against Israel. And most students in the USA worship, like a cult-like figure. They worshipped Charlie Kirk. And for Charlie Kirk to then do a U-turn and flip on Israel would mean that all of his thousands upon thousands of followers in the USA, and even some in England here, I know a couple, is that they would also turn as well. And that's the reason why you would have a whole generation of young-minded students then turn. It would have undone all of the work that Israel had done in the sense that they gave Turning Point USA millions and millions and millions. Their last turnover, the last financial year, they made $80 million profit. So it would have undone everything. This is why it is most likely that Israel knocked him off. Again, this is not a very difficult conclusion to make. The fact that Nick Fuentes is not talking, like, keeping in mind, Nick Fuentes is a person that believes Israel were behind the JFK assassination. Nick Fuentes also believes that Israel were behind 9/11. Keeping in mind, Israel have knocked off a head of state. They have killed thousands of people in the World Trade Towers. So Is it so difficult to believe that they would knock off Charlie Kirk? Not really. If they're willing to kill a head of state and they're willing to kill thousands and thousands of people, men, women, and children, it's not very difficult to believe they would kill Charlie Kirk, then, is it? That his accusation, the belief is that, oh, if you tripped over your shoelace, you would think Israel did it. It's like, no, this actually has motive. There is motive here, and there is evidence here. Circumstantial evidence, yes, admittedly, there is no hardcore evidence, as there is no hardcore evidence of 9/11 and JFK, for example. It's all circumstantial, really, let's be honest. But a person using common sense and critical thinking can put it all together, can't they? So I put it here. Someone asked me, well, what's the evidence? What's the evidence? So let me just quickly go through it. Now, I see our guest is in the chat, is in the room there, and I'll add Jacqui after. I've already explained the motives here. So here's the evidence that we know. The Jerusalem Post were the first media outlet in the world to report Kirk's death. Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, made an announcement of Kirk being shot before Trump. There was a book advertised on Amazon called The Shooting of Charlie Kirk, one day before he was shot. Similar to how Sandy Hook shootings, there was a donation fund set up 2 days before the actual shootings occurred, and how the BBC reported Building 7 fell and gave details on how that building fell 20 minutes before it actually fell, and how Netanyahu was actually notified by Mossad when he was in London on the actual day of 7/7 London attacks before even MI6 knew of it. This shows what is known in the intelligence community as insider knowledge. There was a flight departing soon after Kirk was shot belonging to a Chabad billionaire. People know about the whole Chabad stuff. Very interesting to go. Very hardcore group of Judaism, essentially. Zionist Judaism. The first arrest of what turned out to be a Jewish man, a decoy, I believe, was also the same guy used in 9/11 propaganda videos after the incident. Let me just show you what I mean by that. In case people... This was originally, there was a elderly man that was initially arrested. His name is George Zinn. So we just watch this quickly, and I'll just put this on.
And I do want to take you out to some of this video that you may have seen on the day of that assassination here, as investigators now say the man who they initially thought was Charlie Kirk's assassin admitted to screaming that he was the gunman to allow the real shooter to get away. Earlier today, the Utah Department of Public Safety explained George Zinn had attended that event, and after the gunshot was fired, he screamed that he had shot Charlie Kirk. Viral videos like this one showing Zinn as he was quickly taken into custody by authorities there. When he was brought to the University Police Department, Zinn allegedly refused to speak with investigators, but was later transported to the hospital for some type of medical emergency. That is where Utah officials say Zinn confessed that he did not shoot Kirk, but that he wanted to hinder the investigation and allow the real shooter time to get away. Zinn also faces charges for possession of child sex abuse material after investigators say they found disturbing images in his phone involving children. The Utah Department of Public Safety says there is no evidence that Zinn worked with the shooter in any way, but the investigation, they say, is still ongoing. Again, this is some of the video that came in on the day of that assassination, as this was one of two people that investigators thought could have been the shooter. They were taken into custody, both detained and then released. However, as you can see there, we also know that George Zinn there was taken back into custody, where he does face several charges. We'll keep you updated on all of that, as we always do here on Live Now from...
This is the same George Zinn who seems to be, I mean, people are saying crisis actor in the comments here. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if he did have these images on his phone of children, I mean, is it possible that a deal was struck, perhaps? That I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud of... Shoot me! Shoot me! Was that you? We don't know.
That's the right to remain silent.
So I'm ready to go leave the hotel. on September 11th.
This bit is basically footage of the same guy, George Zinn, 20 years prior, after the 9/11 incident, where he was also interviewed, where he just happened to be an eyewitness. Keeping in mind, obviously, Charlie Kirk was shot in Utah, and obviously 9/11 occurred in New York City, obviously different, very different areas. And he just happened to be there at 9/11 on the day of 9/11. I mean, incredible coincidence, isn't it?
30 that morning, and go back to Salt Lake City. And they said, come down, look in the lobby. Something's happening here. And they said there's a plane that's headed towards one of the towers in New York City. And we're just glued. Everybody in the lobby is just going, wow, is this pilot error? What's going on here? You know, it was very confusing.
Man charged for making an alleged bomb threat prior to Salt Lake City Marathon. Is there a third one as well?
And we see that plane go in, and we just think, wow, you know. And then I think it was what, a 9/12.
All three events. You know what? I wasn't even aware of this one. So he was there also at the time of the Salt Lake City Marathon bombings. Wow.
That second plane hit that tower. Immediately chaos.
Shoot me! Shoot me!
Wow, I didn't know that. That's news to me. Where am I? So again, you see, obviously, all circumstances that could easily be argued out of the court. Oh, it's just a coincidence. He just happened to be. He's just a guy who likes to get around. It's all circumstantial. All of this is. I'm not saying it's hardcore evidence, but you know, it's amazing how it all just comes together. There was a flight departing soon after Kirk was shot belonging to a Chabad billionaire. I said this. Yeah, the first arrest of what turned out to be a Jewish man, a decoy. Also, the same guy used in 9/11 propaganda videos after the incident. In a meeting arranged by Kirk with wealthy Zionist billionaires, Bill Ackman was noted to be very upset with Kirk for his recent criticisms of Israel. As for the shooter, photos have emerged where it's clearly different people dressed the same. I can show you some of those photos you want, but I'm sure it's been seen already. But if you analyze, yes, same clothing, but different faces, everything. I mean, let's just show you. That's what you all mean. It's this individual here. I mean, like you see, especially what's notable is the ear. It is clearly this chap here who is currently in custody in America. He has a very larger ear compared to this chap here, whoever this guy is. There's actually there's 3 photos. And there's 3 different individuals, again, all wearing the same clothing. But it seems to be now. This could be a theory that perhaps there was more than one person involved here. There was a group of, how can I say it? But basically, pro-transgender, anti-fascist individuals. That is a possible theory. But I'm still staying on this was more than just simply a group of weirdos. Basically, I think it was more professionally organized. They may have been used as patsies and tricked into doing it in some way. I don't know, but I still think there was something bigger at hand playing here. The rifle would have to be disassembled in the heat of the moment and packed into a bag, which by looking at the size of the backpack and the rifle, it's not possible to fit that type of rifle, even broken down, into that size backpack. When the rifle was later found with cartoonish pro-trans and anti-fascist writing, similar to how, just by sheer coincidence, these passports in 9/11 were just found in the debris. Amazingly, with all of the debris, all of the junk that was no doubt the huge buildings and all of the junk that somehow these passports miraculously survived to basically say that these Islamic terrorists. It's almost cartoonish like that. With cartoonish anti-fascist and pro-trans writing, the rifle was reassembled, meaning that, again, in the heat of the moment, with adrenaline going through your veins and panic and fear of being caught. Can you imagine that? Can you actually imagine disassembling a rifle, your hand shaking, and then going to the woods and then reassembling the rifle? Yes, the scope was on wrong, but even so, it's a massive feat of achievement, and you want to get away because the police are after you. the rifle was reassembled, meaning that in heat of the moment with adrenaline was occurring from the shooter. He would have had to quickly disassemble from the roof and then reassemble it, only to just throw it away. So why bother even reassembling it? The shooter supposedly confessed on Discord. He typed he did the shooting and wanted people to know about it, but oddly, is now being uncooperative. So I should have been uncooperative, not cooperative, to law enforcement. A total opposite. Even Fuentes in his video, when he compared both plausible possible theories, doesn't buy it. In fact, when Fuentes was making that video, he actually convinced more people it was Israel, even though he personally doesn't believe it. Hence why his own Telegram channel, where arguably his most loyal supporters are downvoting his comments on it not being Israel. So the theory is that, has this guy been threatened? Or has he been paid off? Nick Fuentes does like money. That is known. But I don't think so. I don't think it's, or is it simply that he is just personally terrified because he like he says himself, he was being all cocky before Charlie Kirk was killed. He was saying, it's my generational run. I'm on the top of my game. I'm going to be remembered. And then Kirk is knocked off. And then all of a sudden, he's become Diet Nick Fuentes. He's become Fuentes Zero. And he's no longer really punching hard. He's pulling his punches in a way. Is it out of fear? I think it's most likely fear, guys. I think the whole point of that killing, I mean, some people say that Charlie Kirk isn't even dead. I mean, who knows really? But I think the whole point of that operation, we'll call it, is so it's a reminder to all of Israel's controlled puppets that if you get out of line, you will get this treatment. It's a warning to everyone. And then I saw what seemed to be the funeral, the memorial. I mean, Tucker Carlson, I mean, you can interpret this in so many ways. Let me just listen to what Tucker Carlson said. It was I actually don't know how to interpret it. Is he basically saying, I mean, listen to what he says first of all.
It actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about, what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea. Why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem.
I mean, what do you have to say about that? What the hell was that last message about by Tucker Carlson, and the weird laugh as well? Wow, indeed, says Carl Mids. Yeah. What was that about? Is he, there's so many ways to interpret that. Is he basically just, are they boasting about it? I don't know. Is it like a boast, or is it him trying to say something tongue in cheek of, yeah, they killed him? It does seem a bit, it's very, it's quite sinister, the whole thing. And then you had his wife. You would think it was the entrance of a wrestler or something. Come out to pyrotechnics.
Hello.
So anyway, yeah, all very strange. Anyway, I'm going to get our guests on. I've actually got two guests. I've been spoiled today. I thought I was only having one, but I'm going to add them on right now. So welcome to the show, Jacqui Deevoy and Richie Brown. How are you both?
Hello, very well, thank you. Nice to see you again, Sean. Been a long time.
Yeah, very well, thanks.
Thanks for coming on. Obviously, Jacqui, you're going to have a new show on Unprecedented TV. Is that correct?
Well, the reason Richie's here is because we come as a package. So we made a film together.
Are you both doing the show together? Are you?
Yeah, the first show was last night, so we're like co-hosting it because we met back in, was it January, Richie? Because I went on Richie's podcast.
That's the one, yeah. We met and I contacted you after I watched your couple of documentaries, and then as a result of that, we ended up doing that documentary Unseen.
Yeah, so the documentary's called Unseen. You can see it on Richie's channel on YouTube. So that's Richie Brown. Is it just called Richie Brown, that channel?
I think so. You search for Richie Brown Show, it will come up on YouTube.
Yeah, we had quite a lot of views. We got loads of views straight away as soon as we put it out in July, and I think it's got 17,000 views on it now, but we'd like some more. But it's a really good documentary, and Richie delves into the whole background of what has been going on over the last 5 years and before that, regarding euthanasia, eugenics, and what's gone on in recent years with people being bumped off in hospitals and care homes. So it's a long documentary. We had a really nice launch of it down in Swansea at Cinema & Co, where Anna Redfern's cinema. And yeah, people like it so far, but it's 2.5 hours long, but it doesn't seem that long when you watch it. It's good. So yeah, so we'd like to kind of get more of an audience for that, really. Do you want to add anything about that, Richie?
Yeah, I mean, it looks at the death protocols that were sort of unleashed on our elderly during the so-called COVID event. And at a time when they were talking about saving Granny, they're giving all these different protocols to effectively kill people. They did all sorts of things like ventilators, prescribing remdesivir for COVID. They even like treated pneumonia differently. And this would obviously create a spike in excess deaths, which obviously was then used to roll out the vaccines, which they profit from massively. So it's a whole look at that kind of era, but it mostly focuses on interviews with people that have been affected by this. Like they've had family members go through these death protocols and they've kind of witnessed it firsthand, how they've been pushed down these kind of death pathways. And I mean, yeah, it's just a very strange thing, because at what point do you realize you're on a death pathway? You know, it's yeah.
It's quite almost fitting that you're both on today, because obviously yesterday was the news in America that both RFK Jr. and Donald Trump have announced that they have found the cause of autism, and they believe that it's paracetamol. So somewhat, I mean, many people believe that really it's not just the COVID jabs, but various other previous vaccinations that may be the cause of it. But now I was expecting maybe something like that was going to be announced, but instead they have said it's actually paracetabel. What's your opinions on that?
Could that be like a red herring to me? Because obviously, Robert Kennedy was talking about autism recently, and obviously the previous claims were that it was linked to vaccines. And could this be like just a red herring thrown in there to make people suddenly go, oh my God, it's Tylenol, isn't it, they give to children in America, which is like our Calpol, which is poison, basically. I don't know if you've ever seen a child after they've had a spoon of that. They go absolutely bonkers, climbing the walls, literally. I remember giving some to my first daughter when she was little, and she'd just turn into this monster, and so obviously then you kind of avoid it with the others. But most people know now that it's not a good thing to give your kids. Whether it's linked to autism or not, I don't know, because I know there's a very high level of autism in the US, but they'd all be autistic, every single one of them, because pretty much everyone in America uses that Tylenol, even though it's...
I've personally never heard a link between paracetamol and autism. I've never heard it. I mean, it is readily available. You can buy it in supermarkets for very cheap prices. It's usually It's usually right at the you know, what do you call it, the conveyor belt. You know, when you're buying your items, it's usually there on display.
Richie's got young children, so he's probably able to talk about that. And he's probably looked into it more than I have in recent years.
Well, yeah, I've got a child in school at the minute, and she was asked to come in for a flu vaccine, and I was looking at the ingredients in that, and there's aluminium in that vaccine, and since my wife has been pregnant from the second time, she's now pregnant with our third. They asked her to come in for a RSV vaccine during pregnancy, and we didn't have to do that for the first two. So that's something they've introduced since then, and that's all related to the mRNA technology. So they're making a good old buck off that. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the ingredients of these vaccines, they've all got like aluminium or theramosil, the mercury. I mean, up until 2020, I got to be honest, I believed vaccines were a modern medical miracle. But yeah, after researching them for a bunch of years, especially after having kids and especially after COVID, it is just crazy. Like when they were putting mercury in the vaccines, they just said that it disappeared out of children's blood after a couple of weeks. And then a 2004 study came out where a scientist basically took a bunch of chimps, injected them with the vaccine, but then killed the monkeys, opened their brains, and they found all the mercury in their brains. So paracetamol, I don't buy it at all.
There's definitely a link between mercury and autism, and then there's also a link between aluminium and Alzheimer's, because it doesn't come out of the body once it's in, it gets lodged in the brain. And that's my belief, and has been for about 20 years. I've been anti-vax for about 20 years now. So, and I've looked into a lot of them over the, except by the time they're pushing these ones in 2020, at the end of 2020, there's no chance I was going to trust any of that nonsense, especially as it wasn't even a vaccine. It was a gene therapy, mRNA, as we know. And this is the problem. And this is anyone I know who's had the jab, especially if they've had 4 or 5 or more, they're not well. You know, their brain they've got brain fog. A lot of them, their personalities have changed. They're tired all the time. They can't remember anything, and they're more aggressive and easily angered. And I do think that's to do with the jabs. When I first mentioned that in 2021, people were laughing, but now you're starting to see it. You know, people have got very short fuses these days, and I'm sure it's linked.
You had quite a successful documentary, didn't you? That I think, did you do? Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you do with the Ikes?
Yeah, I did. Back in 2021, I did a documentary called "A Good Death?" with Iconic, and I think that was one of their most watched documentaries. Actually, It
certainly went world famous. I remember, definitely hearing about.
Yeah, so that was I started looking into it in 2020. What was going on? I first went on to David Icke's podcast, and we were talking about about the elderly being bumped off in care homes, because we could see that happening. My dad was in a care home at that time, and I managed to get him out of the care home. But I found out very early on in May 2020 that there was a DNR on him, a do not resuscitate order. My dad was 76 at the time, and he wasn't unwell. He'd had a minor stroke. He was just temporarily in a care home, so they could look after him for a bit until he got better. And I found out there was a DNR, and I asked them why, and they said, "Oh, everyone has them. We're putting them on everyone." And I had to fight to get that removed, but they were trying not to remove it. And he died a couple of years later, but at least he didn't die in a care home, and at least he wasn't. Well, actually, sadly, it was a horrible story. I do believe he was killed by paramedics who came to his house and injected him with a fatal concoction of drugs, and he died half an hour later. But that is a whole other story.
Pure evil. I think that was, those DNRs, when obviously the justification was used by the UK state that, obviously there's a pandemic going on, there's an emergency, all the hospitals are full, we just don't have the time to deal with these elderly people, and the Nightingale hospitals are full, and it was all lies, wasn't it? There was no hospitals weren't full. You saw many videos, including, we'll probably think someone we know called Debbie Hicks, who famously went around to Gloucester Hospital and filmed an empty hospital, but she was arrested, she was punished for it. I think she was found guilty eventually, had to whatever it was, pay a fine and do some community service and all of that, even though she was correct. But
she was also assaulted by the police when they arrested her. Yeah, absolutely right. I've had her on, because I used to do a show for Unity News Network, as you did, and I had her on a couple of times, and she was talking about, it's quite awful, the story, really. But there wasn't just her. There are other people going to hospitals, and everyone was observing pretty much the same. But when I heard about it was usually elderly, but not always elderly, and they weren't terminally ill. A lot of the people that were killed in the hospitals and care homes at that time. There was a massive spike in care home deaths in April 2020, but that was nothing to do with a killer virus, and all to do with them being put on these pathways and given these end-of-life drugs, as they're called. And I set up a support group at the time just to keep everyone all in one place for the film. And there's now nearly 200 people in that group, and they come and go. And I've spoken to probably 1,000 people in the last 5 years who are all saying pretty much the same thing, that a loved one went into hospital for something minor and was dead in a matter of days. And so I did a second film as well called Playing God. That came out last year, and that's a really good film as well if anyone wants to watch it. It's on Rumble, and so is A Good Death on Rumble. I think they were taken down off YouTube. And of course now we've got the new film Unseen, which is much more detailed, but it's longer, and Richie looks into all the politics of it and the history, and obviously it's an update because it only came out 2 months ago, so it's really, really up to date, whereas the others, they still stand, the others, but it's still going on. This is the problem. But we've now got people going to court over this and getting to inquest stage, and we're just waiting to see what's going to happen with the first one. As you know, it takes a long time. Like, this has taken 5 years to get to inquest stage, and this is the Dimmock case, which has been going on since June 2020, when Derek Dimmock was where he died in suspicious circumstances, actually in a hospice. So he wasn't terminally ill, and he was elderly, but he wasn't ready to die. So people are doing that, but of course that costs an awful lot of money, and most people, it costs over £100,000 to get to kind of inquest stage, and most people can't afford that. So it's very difficult for people to get their stories out, and that's what Richie and I wanted to do with this film, just give them a voice. So
it's definitely a great barrier, obviously, especially with things like judicial reviews. It's a way of just keeping this sort of stuff out of the public domain, I think. Yeah. Richie, I'm just on your YouTube channel here. I mean, tell us about yourself, Richie. I actually personally don't know much about you. Tell us about what was your how can I say, what was your great awakening, and what changed you?
I'd probably say growing up as a teenager, the Iraq War, when I saw like at least 1 million people on the street protesting a war, and they just completely ignored it altogether. And I would say I've had a couple of awakenings since then. Like I didn't, before 2020, I didn't believe that science would be this utterly corrupt. And I was completely shocked at what they did over that period, and how there hasn't been a kind of reckoning since. If you bring up a lot of this stuff now, you're almost like farting at the dinner table. You know what I mean? It's very strange how people won't sort of acknowledge what has happened or investigate what has happened. They just don't want to talk about it, especially people who took the vaccine. And then, how people acted during that period, it was very, very strange to me. And yeah, so I'd say I've had about 3 awakenings, but my first one would definitely be the Iraq War, 9/11, and then possibly Libya as well, and then the COVID event, seeing that unfold in real time, especially after Event 201, which was held shortly before it. And the British government are currently holding the Pegasus pandemic exercise at the moment. So
yes, tell us about that. Tell us about what's going on, because obviously of all the craziness over the past few weeks, with obviously the death of Charlie Kirk and various other things that's going on, obviously mostly the Epstein stuff has been keeping away from that. Tell us more. Obviously we forget about the UK sometimes, our own country, but tell us about that.
Yeah, so they're running the Pegasus exercise at the moment, and that's another mass pandemic exercise. And the thing is, they don't just run these as one-off. Like Event 201 was preceded by Clade X in 2018. They had Atlantic Storm in 2011, which had like that war criminal Madeleine Albright on, and it had all like the executives from like J&J, Johnson & Johnson, and Pfizer, and that kind of thing. And then you had Dark Winter just before 9/11 as well, when the anthrax attacks. So this is just a continuation of that. Where they're going to go with it this time, I can't see, because in their in the what was it, Operation Lockstep document, or the Rockefeller Foundation, and wrote up, they said you can't lock down everyone all the time. So they were kind of anticipating that they would have to let off, completely crushing civil rights as they did during the COVID era, and they would have to kind of re-allow people to open up. So I think we're in that period, and then they're gearing up for a second one. Is my general opinion on that.
Yeah.
Just looking here on, this is the Metropolitan Police website. They just typed it into the search engine there.
I don't think that's the same one. Project Pegasus was different to Exercise.
Oh, I see. Sorry, ignore that. Ignore that.
That started last Thursday, Exercise Pegasus, but yeah, Project Pegasus is a different thing.
Yeah, so it's the same thing we've seen for all these exercises. It's like a pandemic response plan. They're involving all the typical people you expect, like NHS England, all the different companies attached to that, the private ones too. And they're it's led by like the DHSC and the UK SHA. I don't think it bodes well for normal people.
Well, no, I think it's. I've said since 2021 there will be another one of these, because they're not going to do very well the first time. They haven't killed enough people at all, so they're going to do another one in 2025. I predicted, but so when I heard about this, I thought this is it, because they do these exercises as well to let people know. So they do it in plain sight. All black magic has to be done in plain sight if you want to really delve down that rabbit hole, but. It's evil, and they're letting people know. And then when it happens and everyone's saying what's going on, they're like, well, we told you, didn't you watch, Event 201 back in November 2019, and also this one now. And then I read somewhere a while back, and I do believe this, they're going to try and roll out a pandemic every 3 years. So the next one will be 2028, just to keep people in line, really. I mean, obviously, like you said, Richie, you can't lock everyone down all the time. But if they keep people in constant fear and worry, yes. Which is what they have succeeded in doing, and it's destroyed a lot of people's lives the last 5 years. A lot of people have got PTSD. They're totally traumatized by what's happened. They've lost family members. They've been murdered. They've been euthanized. They've been killed by the jabs. People have committed suicide. People have lost their businesses. And it's absolutely terrible. And a lot of people have never recovered and probably never will. I know a lot of people in that situation personally. So, and I think we're all a bit traumatized by it, because it was such a shock to many, many people. But I do think people will comply again, because there's a large section of people who loved it. It was drama, it was excitement, it made a change. They could stay at home from work and get furloughed. A lot of people really liked the drama of it, and really, especially if they were still earning money and not having to go to work. And the NHS were heroes, except they weren't. And if they really wanted us to know everything about it, they'd employ the mainstream media to put it out there. But that's not happening either. A lot of the stories that me and Richie are going to be talking about on our show, the show's called Beyond the Mainstream. We're going to be talking about the stuff that the mainstream do not report, because even now they're not reporting the important stuff. They really aren't.
I was thinking about that whole the NHS are heroes stuff just literally the other day. I was at the gym, and on one of the songs that came on, I think it's by a guy called The Weeknd, and it had that, the song. Remember all those TikTok videos, and it was always that one song, yeah. Wasn't it? And every time I hear it, you talk about being traumatized. When I heard that song come on, it's a good song, right? But it's just totally ruined by the imagery of those nurses and paramedic staff, etc., doing all of that very well trained. Well, not well trained, but there was at least a minimum couple of hours put into the choreography of the dance moves and everything. Keep in mind, during this pandemic where all these hospitals are full, the NHS staff are run off their feet, but yet they still have time to rehearse and film, and if someone messes up the dance step, right, we've got to film it again. It must have gone through hours of eventually just then uploading it up to the social medias. And I was just thinking, we all just, like most people, even people in this gym right next to me, everything, they all went insane. There's only about maybe a couple of others in this gym that were probably like-minded like me, but most of them, they all went generally insane and generally believed that these NHS staff people were actually, we're going above and beyond the call of duty. And it was just, it generally is insane how, the mindset. It was fascinating living within that era. Do you know what I mean? Living and watching the the madness of crowds, how the fear propaganda works. And, obviously us three being immune to it, and probably people watching being immune to that, but watching everyone else, like the spell, as you say, Jacqui, that it had upon the populace, and how they just, they generally went, they lost their minds. They lost the fear killed them. They killed their logic process, or whatever you want to call it. It killed their common sense. And it's just, it's amazing. I like to live through that and actually watch it. It really was something.
Yeah, really was.
Yeah,
I mean, I wrote
it's very useful to them as well, because they want to tie it into the digital ID, and they want to be able to restrict travel based on like there being an active pandemic. Which, even if like the Scottish COVID, I'll give a plug for the Scottish and the UK COVID inquiry. As the Scottish COVID inquiry has just started back up, and they're looking at the spread of it, and none of it makes any sense as to there being an actual pandemic, the way they're looking at the epidemiology of it. And if they can tie that into a digital ID, that's fantastic, because they have so much control over every single human being in the country. And yeah, I mean, it's very useful to them. And on top of that, the profits that they make on it are ridiculous. The pharmaceutical industry makes more money than the energy industry. I found that absolutely absurd when I found out that fact. I was like, that cannot be true, that drugs can be worth more than the energy industry, which we all depend on to do any sort of economic activity at all.
It is. It is all linked. It's part of that. Someone's asked in the chat if Sean, can you ask about Event 201? So if whoever wants to take the lead on that.
Well, I first saw that back in 2019, November, I think it was, and watched it every day while it was going on live. And so I was expecting a pandemic to strike, or a faux pandemic. And so when it did, even when it happened in February, March, it was still a shock. I didn't think it would happen so soon, after the Event 201. So I kind of knew what to expect. I've always been a conspiracy analyst anyway for a long time. You were asking Richie earlier about what woke him up. I woke up in 1969 when I was 7, and my dad told me that no one went to the moon, so and to question everything, don't believe everything you see on the telly. And so
that's a smart man.
Yeah, no, he was, yeah. And so that's when I was kind of starting to wake up. And then of course after that there was before that there was the JFK shooting. I was very little then, but and then the Robert Kennedy shooting as well. I think that was 1966. And then I was very small, but I do remember reading the headline in 1966. I could read. I was 4, and I just remember it was very big letters, and so I was reading them, spelling it out for my mum. But and then obviously all the other stuff that's gone on since, including 9/11 and right up into the present day. So I do question everything. Like you were mentioning the dancing nurses, I've written extensively about
2
that.
seconds.
Went into it, and then yeah. So we're going to be talking about a lot of that stuff, hopefully on the show. Anything that's not on, I'll show you.
I got to drop off after this, but I'll just leave that one contribution for the Event 201. So they basically got together all the pharmaceutical executives. They got politicians, like trusted journalists, like the people that were deeply connected to the state, and they got them all in, and they got to basically role play a pandemic as to how it would unfold. And they would have like fake news reports of like, oh, there's 100,000 cases over here and so many people dying. People are rioting because they can't access vaccines, and this country can't access this because and we need to do something about getting access to vaccines for these like third world countries that don't have vaccines, and that kind of thing. So it was kind of, on the face of it, it's supposed to be a pandemic preparedness exercise, but in reality it's a vaccine selling point, and a kind of how to organize all these different people with different interests to control the entire countries, as we saw during that period. But I've got to drop off now, but thank you very much for having me.
Yeah,
no worries. Thanks very much for joining us, and no doubt when is your new show? Do you know when?
Yes, every Monday evening, and being broadcast. See you later, Richie. It might be we might be putting it on to Tuesday. It depends, because we record it at 6 and then put it out at 8. But at the moment it's Monday evening. Next week we've got Matt Letitia on, because we have one guest and we attack him from both sides. And Richie asks all the sensible questions and I get all the gossip basically. And then the week after that, which is the 6th of October, we've got Gareth Icke coming on, because he's always good for a bit of banter and chatting about the news. Mentioning event 201 there. Have you heard about event 101? Are you going to go up to that?
Yes. I was literally just about to ask you that to follow on. Let me just put it on the screen here, because I literally just uploaded it via my phone on my Telegram. Are you hosting that or participating in that in some way?
I'm just going up there to see what's going on, and obviously to see Gareth and Abby and Ant and everyone. And I'm going to go up. There's actually a train strike on that day, I found out yesterday, because I was trying to book a train for the Sunday or 5th, but no trains at all around that day, it seems. So I'm going to go up the day before and stay until the Monday. So I'll be there for the duration. But it looks great. So if anyone wants to come along to that, I did say to Ant that I'd give it a mention now on this show. So
yes, I'll be going to it. I actually have bought a ticket. It's on Sunday, the 5th of October. Obviously, and it's be at from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Actress and Bishop pub, I think that is, Birmingham B31EH. So tickets are 25 quid at least. It says super early bird. That's when I got them anyway. I don't know how much they'll be on the day.
Where can people buy the tickets? Does it say where they can get the tickets there? Oh, it's just event 101 or
event. I'll tell you what. I'll get it up on and I'll put it, if anyone's interested. If they're near Brum, I will then put it in. And I assume Exercise in Clown World. Do you know anything more about what the event is? I'm going. I've just want to have a jolly. Obviously, I will listen to what's being said as well. But I do go up there to network really. But go on, tell us about it.
I just love all the people involved, and so I'm interested in what they've got to say. Love Abby, love Gareth, love Ant. So I think it's going to be really, really good fun. It's going to be serious and lighthearted at the same time with that collection of people. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to go up for the whole weekend. So yeah, if people want to get tickets, they can get them there at www.event101.org.
Yes, and I'll put the link now in the chat. So apparently there's going to be live interviews, comedy, music. Obviously, comedy will be from Abby, I imagine. So it should be quite an interesting event. Yeah, so that. Jacqui. So what since then? What have you been up to since you've left UNN to getting your show on Unprecedented? Has there been any interesting developments that you've been doing any kind of writing or anything along those lines?
Have I frozen on the screen? Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yep, totally fine.
So I've been doing lots of writing. I write all the time, every day. I do tons of stuff on X. I always do loads of posts every day, even that people are finding it harder and harder to see me. I think that I'm being a bit shadow banned there at the moment. Also, I write lots of articles, and I do a bit of travel journalism on the side just to balance things out a bit, just to keep it a bit light, because it is really tough sometimes, the sort of things that I'm dealing with, and the poor people who've got into terrible situations with loved ones dying and stuff. So I do a bit of travel journalism and don't make much money out of that, but I do get a few trips out of it, which is good. And I've also put together a book called Murdered by the State, which we hope will be published in October sometime. It's a compilation of stories from people whose loved ones have that they believe have been killed in hospital care homes and hospices. And I put that together with a guy called Richard Cox, and that should be out in October. It's been published by Mark Atwood's publishing company, so he's helping us with that. So that's great. So, and then I'm going to work on another book, and then I've got lots of ideas for documentaries and films, but it's hard to make them without the money. This is always the problem, isn't it? So, it'd be nice to get a sponsor or some kind of investor, because I've got endless ideas, and just crowdfunding doesn't always work, So I've crowdfunded the last 2 films, but it's not easy and it can take a long time.
Yeah, I know. I saw that the Ikes made a recent documentary, and he actually did it they did it basically on a shoestring budget, and they used I think they used a lot of how can I say it? I think, don't quote me if I'm wrong, but they used sort of like AI and stuff like that to basically make the documentary, or at least stock footage, I should say, more like to make the documentary. And I watched it, and if they hadn't have said that because I assumed that they went on location, it was regarding Israel. I assumed they just went to Israel, but no, none of it. No, they never landed at all in Israel at all. And they made the whole documentary at a very, very low cost price, and it was still a really good documentary. So these things, perhaps, they can be done, especially with the making of AI now. It can be a lot of. I mean, you see a lot of those crazy Charlie Kirk videos, AI generated ones. Very well. What's your opinion on all of that, by the way? I
wanted to join in when I wanted to join in when you were talking about it earlier. Well, my gut feeling when I first saw it was like, oh God, that's terrible, And then I thought, I'm not going to say anything for a couple of days. I'm just going to like look at things, absorb it. Now, I started to realize it was this event had all the characteristics of a psyop, basically a classic psyop. So my belief is quite different to other people's, in that I believe it's all to do with Trump wanting to bring the death penalty back into the 23 states that currently don't use it. He's a big fan of the death penalty. And I thought that because it wasn't just the Charlie Kirk thing that happened that week. That they brought that story in of the girl on the train, Irina Zarutska. That had happened a month before, but they saved that story for the same week that Charlie Kirk got allegedly shot. And I think it could be a psyop that could be one of the agendas, bringing back the death penalty. And that's the kind of gut feeling that I had about it. I don't believe he's dead. I think Erica Kirk is a terrible actress. I mean, that clip you showed earlier, it's like, what the hell? But I don't think we'll ever know for sure. We can all theorize. That is a theory of mine, and everyone's got an idea. But there's no point. I kind of gave myself a few days looking at it. I just thought, no, that's it now. I can't spend any more time on it because we'll never find out, and we'll never know. And we can theorize as much as we like. But what I can say is everything we see on the screen, we're meant to see. We're not all the great internet sleuths that we think we are. It's like, oh, look, I found it. Yeah, well, you were meant to find that because they wouldn't put it out there if you weren't meant to. And it's a great distraction as well to all the other stuff that's going on.
Do you know what? I was actually debating someone about, because they also believe, like you, that Charlie Kirk isn't dead, and it was all basically like a theatre production, you could say. And I was saying, I mean, I've not ruled that out. I'm not thinking that it is all fake, but I was just in the zone that more it is a great benefit for both America and Israel for this guy to be dead, because obviously, like I said earlier, is that he's turning on his paymasters essentially, and they can't have one of their biggest assets, Israel's biggest assets, who goes from uni to uni, converting the minds of students to basically love Israel, to then flip, because then all of the cult followers that Kirk has would also flip with him. And also it benefits America because literally only 4 hours after Kirk was assassinated, they had that vote in the Senate about the Epstein files being released, which I think it was 51 to 49, that the files didn't get released. So it distracted also over the last few days about that. So it helped Trump in that way, because Trump, ironically, a guy who is most of his campaign of 2024 was basically to release the Epstein files, and then now he's the biggest opponent to them being released, which is quite the flip, which makes you very suspicious of whether on Trump's intentions and what's actually in those files, you could say. But what really, so I was coming from it in that end. But what really has thrown that out for me is this Fox News article, this headline. It says, "Man of Steel, Charlie Kirk's body stopped a bullet that would typically just go through everything. And it was an absolute miracle. Nobody else was killed," his surgeon told Turning Point USA. Surgeon says that Kirk's body stopped bullet in absolute miracle that saved others, TP Turning Point USA says. So
I wrote about this, and it's like I did a post about this. It's like he's not only a saint, he's like now, you know, the $6 million man, you know, with bones of steel. But it's all just distraction. You can't take it all. Oh, they have written Man of Steel. They're amazing. But yeah, I did read about that. Who knows what's true and who knows what's not true? I mean, what was highly suspicious was them disassembling the whole crime scene immediately, seconds after they'd cast him off, in a black car. Where's the paramedics? Where's the ambulance? You know, at those events, there's always paramedics to hand in case something happens. No, they carried him off in black car and off he went, and probably onto that plane that left that you mentioned earlier. Who knows? And gone somewhere, and I don't know where. But yeah, to just disassemble the crime scene immediately after, you see that guy in the white t-shirt taking down the camera, the most important camera that would have been needed, you know, to see what happened. Then you see these bits of film where the film is glitching, you know, and you've got people's heads disappearing and chairs going through tables, and it's all just very, very bizarre. And I don't know if we'll ever get to the truth of what it was all about. But I mentioned the girl who was allegedly killed on the train as well. They put that story out the same week. And again, it's such a horrific looking crime, whether it happened or not, or whether it was real or not. There's been a lot of internet sleuthing going on about who she was. And there was another girl with the same name who looks identical, who was killed out in Ukraine. She was a medic out there or something. Anyway, all this stuff. But when you analyze that video as well, it's very, very strange. But both crimes are so horrendous. You know, the people could be stirred up enough to demand that the death penalty comes back, you know. And that was, I kept coming back to that, thinking, is this what it's about? You know, is that what it's about? Again, it could be to do with guns as well, gun control. They often are. Like the Sandy Hook thing was all about gun control, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, we could pontificate and theorize until the cows come home, but we might never get to the truth or have the truth confirmed.
We never will, and that's I think that's basically their aim, is that it's something that can be easily, you know, was it plausible deniability, isn't it? Basically, is that you can just, that they know, like even with stuff like 9/11 and the Iraq War stuff, and or you know, there is no like hardcore definitive evidence. It's all basically speculation. But obviously, like I say, if you have a lot of critical-minded people, unfortunately, we're made up of a society that are not really critical thinkers. Like, you know, look, they just want to do their job, pay their taxes, go to the sports ball in the weekends, or watch their junk TV. They're not. They don't really want to engage their brains. They don't want that. So, if basically, I mean, Napoleon famously said, you know, history is relied upon by nations. So once a narrative has been created, and once all of the media and all of the world nations just agree on that narrative, no matter how implausible and how ridiculous that narrative is, that's it. It's considered fact. It's considered history. That, you know, and that's the end of it. It's all just about, well, we need to come up with a story. That's the story. Right, let's all agree on that. Right, that's it. Move on. Next thing. Yeah, that it's basically as it's done like that, like you would see in some sort of fantasy novel. So, Jacqui, I think I'm gonna let you go. Thank you for coming on. Like you said, you think that. Go for it.
No, just thanks for having me. Sorry, I'm a bit of a chatterbox and a terrible interrupter. You might have noticed. I've got to get a grip on this.
I'm worse, but thank you for coming on. Obviously, your new show on Unprecedented TV, you believe will start perhaps sometime on a Tuesday evening. You've not yet banged out the actual timings yet. Do you know roughly when that will start? Roughly? We did
the first show last night, so that went out at 8 p.m. last night. Yeah, we had our first guest on. That was Lembit Opik, the man himself, the co-creator of Unprecedented TV, and that we had a hilarious time. Actually, we talked about serious stuff. We talked about all the gossip and scandal in his past. We talked about all his accidents that he's had, and we talked about and I got him to sing, which was great. So he gave us a little "Fly Me to the Moon" rendition of that, which was great. So he was a great guest, very chatty, and got some amazing stories. And like I said, next week we've got Matt Letitia, and the week after that we've got Gareth Icke. Hopefully, just organising that now. And then I haven't arranged anything else for the following week, so we're just going to play it by ear. But Richie's the co-host with me. He's the sensible one, and I'm the not so sensible one. He's so good at history and politics and all that kind of stuff that I'm not so good at. But I'm good at all the gossip and the chatter and the banter. So.
Well, that's great. Well, again, Jacqui, thank you for coming on. Obviously, look forward to seeing your shows. And we'll catch
in Birmingham.
Yes, and I'll see you in Birmingham, of course. Yes, at the event 101, not 202, whatever the actual name is. But thank you very much, Jacqui. I'll let you go. Cheers for coming on.
Thanks a lot.
See you again soon. Take care. See you soon. See you. Bye. That was Jacqui Deevoy there. She's got a show starting. Well, it's already started, but it's on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. So I've been told. I've never done this before. I've been told by our esteemed creator of Unprecedented TV, Lempit Opeg, people might former Lib Dem MP, that I have to run an ad. I've not done this before, so let's run the ad and see what it is something to do with an airline. So let's see it. So I'm going to run this. Guys, we'll be back in after 30 seconds. See you in a minute. Well, that was the ad. If people are, I've got a friend who's stuck out. They're waiting for a cheap flight back to London, so perhaps that airline can help them. whatever it was. So anyway, guys, I'm going to go into. God, you know what? There's been a few things going on. I mean, I just sort of want to. I'm still kind of blown away by the whole Charlie Kirk thing, but. It is, yeah, someone said in the chat, yeah, we're sending more billions to another 900 billion to Israel. The US House of Representatives on Wednesday passed the annual defense policy bill authorizing nearly $900 billion in military spending, include a slate of provisions aimed at bolstering Israel's security. So, as I've said here, I've said, you know, I've gotten to the point now of, like we had David Shayler on last week, former MI5 agent. And I asked him, I said, you know, what is do you think that we can vote our way out of this? Because obviously you've got many people are relying, it's like hopium. Their hope is that Reform UK are going to, or, you know, some people who are really on hopium think that Advance UK, Ben Habib's political party, which in my opinion has absolutely no hope in hell of even getting one seat, never mind even with the backing of the support of Elon Musk and other of the slop merchants of YouTube. There's just no way that I can't see it. I'd be very shocked they even got one seat. But many people are relying on the Reform UK to do to save them. They need a savior. You know, hey, I don't want to get up on my arse. I'm happy watching the sports ball on the weekend, and I don't want to have to do. I don't want to have to do anything that is gonna make the country better. I want other people to solve my problems for me. And I remember Nick Griffin the week before that, he too was said that no, there is no political solution out of it. I saw people in the comments saying that, oh, Nick needs to go back to politics. But I think, you know, I too used to be in politics, you know, not as much, obviously not a heavyweight like Nick or even people like David Curtin at the moment. But there is no real solution out of this. And I do think that really we have to remove ourselves from thinking that there is a political solution from this. And instead, we have to, where was it? Insider knowledge? No, that wasn't it. I'm trying to find a video of him saying it, but I don't think I've actually uploaded it now that I think about it on this Telegram. But I think that really what we need to do is, and I know many people who have followed me before, they know what I'm going to say, but obviously new people, unprecedented here. I do think that really what we have to do is we have to vote with our money. And what I mean by that is that we have to have, I think, a civil mass non-compliance, in the sense that we have to stop paying our taxes. We have to stop complying. We have to stop paying our utility bills. We have to stop paying, perhaps even go as far as to stop paying our mortgages. And really we have to attack these three things. We have to attack the state via not paying taxation. We have to attack the banks by not paying our mortgages. And we have to attack the utility companies by not paying our utility bills. And I think that there does need to be a escalation of doing this in a smart way, not just simply doing it all at once, because I think that would be unrealistic. I think at first we have to obviously do the easy steps first, the easy, achievable, winnable goals. Like, many people don't even now pay their TV license, although I do know people who are in this community that do still pay their TV license. I don't know why exactly, but they feel as though that we can change things somehow at the BBC by continuing to pay the TV license. But I think that we need to stop paying our TV license first. I then think the next step would be we then have to stop paying our council tax, because we can control these taxes. We then need to move to the next step and stop paying our utility bills. I was talking to someone I met on Saturday, and we just happened to be on the same wavelength. Didn't know this, just started talking to them at this public event, and we happen to be on the same wavelength. It's good when you meet like-minded people. And they were saying, yep, stop paying my utility bills now for 2 years, not having it. And I think then the next step has to be the people who work for themselves. They have to stop paying their taxes, income tax, etc. I know some of us that we have a PAYE, pay as you earn. But the people who don't have PAYE, people who own their own businesses, I think that they need to take that step then. And then I think the final step is then obviously not paying the banks, the mortgages. And I think we do now. Obviously, when people think of the strikes back in the day in the 70s, people refer to it as the winter of discontent. But that was actually the last time that really, I think, that people actually did have power. I think the union since then, I think that a lot of the establishment, the state, got very scared of what happened, because the UK was considered the sick man of Europe at the time. The actual term it was given, the sick man of Europe. And it was a very harsh time for people. It was basically a stalemate of the unions versus the state. And we have to break, and it was basically who blinks first loses. Unfortunately, that was the unions. And I think since then, the unions, the trade unions, there has been people put in, such as Mick Lynch, for example, that I think they're totally controlled people. I think people like Bob Crow, if people remember that guy before he died, I think they have been installed to make you think that the workers have some sort of power. Keep in mind, I come from a libertarian sort of background, not a socialist one, but I still do recognize the power that people did have back then. And there needs to be basically a grinding halt of this country. And there needs, I think, as much as it would be hard, but we're only getting slowly worse. We're delaying the inevitable. Eventually, this system, the economic system, it is going to collapse eventually. We're already in times of inflation. Eventually, if we keep following this path, the inflation is going to get worse and worse and worse. We're delaying the inevitable. We're kicking the can down the road, and we are going to get into levels of hyperinflation eventually. So it's better that we can control the situation by having another kind of winter of discontent in a way, than by slowly sleepwalking into one, and then it's all a panic. Do you know what I mean? I think we do need to go back to the. It's quite interesting. When I was speaking to Nick Griffin, we were talking about Harold Wilson, who obviously was the prime minister at the time during the winter of discontent. He was the guy who was prime minister, the Labour prime minister, who famously said, "Recession? What recession?" But it was interesting to see at the time that he was the last prime minister to be openly against Israel. He was the last Israel to be sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. And then it really does put a different perspective on how you view Harold Wilson. Then it's like how, not that I'm supporting the Nazis back in Germany, but obviously the Nazis are known for burning of books back in the day. There were book burnings, but many people don't ask, is that what were the books that they were burning? Now, the books that they were burning were mostly transgender ideology and gay sex books written by, coincidentally, a lot of Jewish authors that were pushing the transgender stuff after the First World War in 1920s, 1930s Germany. And it was really seen as a really sick, broken society, especially with also hyperinflation as well. And when you realize that those German people were burning those books, those transgender ideology, we have it now. It's almost like history doesn't repeat, but it certainly does rhyme. And now we're going through a kind of similar kind of situation, but obviously different. We're not as bad as the German people at the time, but it definitely does put a different perspective on when you sort of think about, oh, they were burning these transgender books and these books on young children's sex, like we see now in what's in a lot of school libraries now. And it's quite odd. It definitely put a different, not that, obviously I condone what the Nazis did, of course not. I mean, I come from a libertarian perspective, quite the opposite, but it does definitely put a different perspective on how you see what was going on. A lot of upset parents, a lot of stuff. They're not, obviously their society, a once proud German society, very conservative, very family value oriented, was basically being absolutely just destroyed essentially as it was going on. You can then see why people like Hitler then came to prominence, because he was promising that he would basically get rid of all of that stuff and obviously go back to the proud days of what Germany was back before the First World War, etc. So it definitely does, like I said, put a different perspective on how you view things. So when I say about the winter of discontent, it's like obviously it was harsh times. There was obviously times where people didn't have electricity. There was the piling of garbage and everything like that. But you can see that there was basically a kind of silent war going on between the people and the state at the time. And I think we do need to go through some hard time. The reality is we have it too good now. Even in this slowly degrading society that we live in, we still have it good. And even though the costs of everything has gone up, it's people, what do they say? That good times make weak people and hard times make strong people. And we are really still living in those good times. So I said, so regarding the whole, when we see about, I mean, obviously, and we in the UK are no doubt supporting giving our hard-earned tax money that all of you work hard for, then sending it to a very subversive state that uses that money to fund things like Turning Point USA, and they use it to penetrate cabinets, as the WEF would say, Klaus Schwab. They use that money, your taxpayers' money that they steal from you, to then fund all of these operations, and including all of these Mossad operations, everything, these killings of all of these people. We're funding it by continuing to pay for it. So I said, always remember, by continuing to pay tax, you are funding the actions of Israel, whether it be child sex trafficking, blackmail operations, bombings of Arab lands, political assassinations, real assassinations, murdering and starvation of women and children in Gaza, infiltration of Western governments. I mean, really, we do have to turn the tap off. We have to stop supplying this. And no matter even if Nigel Farage was to become Prime Minister of Reform UK, it really doesn't matter, because, I mean, you see Nigel Farage being attacked all the time. And I think a lot of people have missed the point on this, is that he's not being attacked because he's too soft or whatever. it's because he's not Zionistic enough for the Zionist power lobby of the West, the power brokers who determine who is the prime minister, who determine who the presidents are. That's the real reason why there is this kind of political civil war going on between Reform and Rupert Lowe, is because they want to put pressure on Farage to say that, hey, look, just like how we done over Trump in 2020, we can easily do that to you, Farage. We can fix it so you don't become prime minister. I think that's what generally happened to Trump in 2020. They basically said, look, we need you to be more, and I think that's what happened. After October the 7th, I think everything changed. I think then there was a deal done with Trump to make him more, okay, I'll be more Zionistic. I'll be more in support of what's going on here. This is like people like Ben Shapiro and all of that. These are people who are so obviously doing the work of like what Charlie Kirk does, a subversion. Instead, obviously, it's not done on a campus, but it's done obviously on YouTube. People know Operation Mockingbird. This is like the continuation of it, 2.0, I call it, where it's evolved into alternative media on YouTube, etc., and Rumble. So I put like an absolute great comment on one of the Daily Wire's YouTube comment section. Someone called Media Portal One has got over 14,000. Probably got a lot more now. I should check it. At the time, it was only one day. 14,000 likes on a comment. I just realized your entire business model requires that us normal folk hate each other. Yes, because obviously it seems as though the whole left and right divide, once you remove yourself from that, and you see, especially now with the Charlie Kirk stuff and the hotel and the migrant hotel stuff, and you watch it, because obviously, back in the day, I'm sure most of us, we would be in that. People still go, they go to the protests, they go. But once you remove yourself from that and you see it, it's all just a spell. It feels like it's just it's a purposely created situation where there is a left and a right divide. And if you're hopelessly caught in that left and right divide, which I know many YouTubers are, I see them, all the big semi-big YouTubers, they're all caught in it. That's why I don't go to protests anymore. I used to live stream some of the protests. I just don't do it. I'm not participating in that garbage. It's generally all just slop. And there are some just hopelessly caught in it, and they can't see the woods through the trees. And it generally is just slop. I mean, the pyrotechnics at Charlie Kirk's memorial, it's proper slop stuff. Let me see this. We have. When I talk about slop, it's the Jeff Taylors of the world, the battle of our lives. Get ready for war. They keep pushing the civil war thing, pushing it. But it's not going to happen. There is going to be no civil war. So together as Alan Miller, excitement announcement tomorrow. We're going to have another meeting. Like how Tommy Robinson is like the working class hero. Alan Miller is the middle class hero. Do you know what I mean? There's like a tailor-made guy for every type of people. The students are like Carl Benjamin or whatever. Yeah, it's like all of, you know what I mean? It's like all of that, isn't it? It's all of the Kash Patel. This is brilliant. Kash Patel keeping in mind, Kash Patel was a guy who made his whole career essentially based on the Epstein, because obviously he had his own show and on YouTube and all of that, and basically his whole thing was that if he ever gets in, he's going to expose the Epstein stuff. He made it up, and so now this is why I say it's totally pointless for us to vote. These people, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, deputy director of the FBI, former NYPD officer, former Secret Service guy who was one of the Secret Service for George Bush and Obama, is that these guys had then started their own shows, mostly on Rumble. They then started their own shows saying, conspiracy stuff, going into it all. And once they got in, they became just as corrupt and just as useless as any of the people they used to be criticizing. Because at the end of the day, Cash App, PayPal, or Kash Patel, these people have thousands and thousands of civil servants under them. In this case, they'll be FBI agents, but really they're just all state workers. They're all state people. And the FBI director position is just another public face position. Kash Patel has no idea what he is doing. You can tell him. He looks like a deer in headlights whenever you see him on camera. He has absolutely no idea what he's doing. The same with even though Dan Bongino was part of the state in terms of a Secret Service agent, and he was a NYPD officer, they still have no idea. He still has no idea what he's doing, because you have thousands and thousands of these state workers, these civil servants that have no interest. Who is the director? What party is, whether it's the Republicans or whether it's the Democrats, whether it's the Labour, whether it's Conservatives. And it's going to be the same when Reform gets in, if they get in. They don't care, because these people are the permanent government. They just have to, a new guy has come in. They just see these new people, these new public office figures that come in. They just see them as obstacles that they have to run around, the civil servants that they just have to get around. They're just a PR of the department, whatever that department is, whether it be the FBI, whether it be the Home Secretary, whether it doesn't matter. Prime Minister even, doesn't matter. President, doesn't matter. They just have to keep doing their jobs and just listen to some idiot, the new guy that's in for 4 years, and then they move on, whatever, right? Or even not even that, some maybe less than that. And so that's why I say is that there is no voting solution. It doesn't matter if Farage. It doesn't even matter if Rupert Lowe became Prime Minister. It doesn't matter if David Curtin became Prime Minister. It doesn't matter if even I became Prime Minister. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's all complete nonsense. It's all just to pretend that we live in a liberal democracy where when you go, it's to make you feel like a special boy, that when you go to that polling station on polling day and you cast your X in a box, is that you have this great power. I've got this shard of power. It makes you feel like a special boy. It's like when people put on a high vis at these events, and it makes them feel like that. They have this smidge of power, and it just goes straight to their heads. It's like the Stanford prison experiment, where they separate a group of 12 people. 6 of them are security guards, 6 of them are prisoners, and the people who become the security guards, the power goes straight to their head, and they naturally become corrupted. It's all just nonsense. So let's just listen to what Kash App Patel, Cash App, PayPal.
Kash Patel, the American people want to know, how does it feel to be a cup for Israel? Answer the question.
We're seeing and hearing what the FBI is doing on a daily basis.
You're claiming to serve the American people. You're serving Israel. Does it feel to be Israel's bitch? You don't care about kids getting raped. The American people want to know.
He's a patriot.
Patriot?
He's a patriot.
Rape kids? Is patriotism to
Thank you for your service, Direct.
Raping kids?
You're an idiot.
I'm an idiot? Really?
Yes, you are.
I didn't say anything.
Kash Patel. People don't know. Let me just Kash Patel. This is what Kash Patel had to say. Let's see, when he's recently interviewed.
We will shut off the machinery that feeds money into Iran. We will no longer have 100 hostages still in captivity, Israeli and American and otherwise, by Hamas and Iran's Hezbollah mercenary forces. We need America to wake up and prioritize Israel and bring home Israelis and make sure we stand by our #1 ally in Israel.
This is so. Keeping in mind, this is the we said about bringing home the hostage. You always hear about the hostages. Oh, the hostages. Here we have to bring home the hostages. This is the official numbers of how many hostages are in. Where is it? Have I not shared it? Oh, it's not. Give me one sec. I'll tell you what, guys. I'm going to run that ad again. Apparently, there was an echo. So whilst I'm doing. So, sorry, I just want to run that just in case. Apparently, there's an echo before, so I didn't want Master Lempet being angry at me. But anyway, this is the official account of whom the hostage. You always hear about we got to release the hostages. The hostages to return. You know, there'll be no negotiation. This is sourced by even officialdom, right? Do I trust the Associated Press, AP, or the Wall Street Journal? No, not really. However, but they are still in the officialdom world. So even using the officialdom world's own logic, according to AP and the Wall Street Journal, and I think also APAC Watch, which is an organization that's been created to basically scrutinize APAC. APAC is the American Israel Political Action Committee, I think it is. I could be wrong on that. Basically, they're basically the people who basically every congressman and every senator in the US has an APAC guy, as Thomas Massey once said, and they're basically Israel first people that tell the congressman how to vote and basically bribe them and give them money all the time, take them to nice dinners essentially, and basically make them love Israel. And every single Democrat and Republican, they all seem to have one, apart from Thomas Massey and maybe a couple of others. So this is the official listing of, so obviously in the red here is the amount of hostages that Israel are holding. So these are probably Palestinian people, we're going to say. So there are 9,400 hostages held by Israel. And the hostages in pink held by Hamas is 111. So even by their own logic, Israel have almost 10 times more. Almost 20 times. Was it 100 times? Oh, my maths are terrible. More hostages than Hamas done. Hamas has 111 hostages, and Israel have 9,400 hostages. So, yeah, someone says Hamas is Israel. Well, Hamas was created by Israel and the CIA, so by Mossad and the CIA. So, in order to, we seem to create our own enemies. Al Qaeda. We create. I mean, famously, what was the Rambo 3 film where Rambo was in Iraq or wherever he was, somewhere in the Middle East, and at the time. Let's watch it. Hang on. Let's find it. Let's see. Rambo 3. Is it Al Qaeda? Teams. Maybe I think it was the Taliban. Actually, did he team up with the Taliban? But basically, in the film, let's say Rambo 3. Let's see. Because at the time of when the film was made, America was allied with what is now designated as a terrorist organization. So it was. Where is it? Because obviously they were fighting the Soviet during the Soviet-Afghan War. So it was one of them. People in the chat are telling me. Is it the Mujahideen? Is that who it was? Al-Qaeda were created by the CIA to battle Russians in Afghanistan. Yes. So it's quite funny. We create our own enemies, and then later on, it's almost like an investment, a guaranteed enemy of the future. Like, you know, Saddam Hussein, he was our ally. We installed the Americans installed him with the help of the West, including us, and then he's an enemy. Do you know what I mean? Like we have, but all of this is being funded by our tax money. And my solution is to simply not pay tax. At least get to a point where we're not paying tax. So then none of this stuff can be funded. I mean, even like I said, even if the most moral individual was elected as our prime minister, the problem is that MI6 and MI5, they don't care. They will, like the CIA in America, they will continue to operate regardless who's in power. They don't care. They're a rule to themselves. So the problem is that we continue to fund all of this, hoping that if we simply elect some nice guy to solve our problems for us, it isn't going to happen. Farage went and visited. Like I said, you've got to shield harder. You've got to shield harder, Farage. You've got to shield for Israel harder. You've got to go. You've got to keep going. With these two at the helm, the future. This is what Darren Grimes says of GB News. With these two at the helm, the future of the Western world can be saved. Oh. And people on GB News will genuinely believe that is true. They will take that in as gospel. Someone says, I think this is I took this. Yeah, this is my screenshot. And I've said, and someone in the comments called David Bell goes, common sensing one photo. See, look, I'm not one of these like anti-Trump, anti-Farage people. I'm not. Because I'm above that. I've ascended. We've most of us in the chat here, we've left this pathetic left first right mindset, right? And when you then leave it and you see the circus of the left first right, and you realize that both sides are just as deluded as each other, and it's like two circuses competing against each other. Like Zippo's circus versus, I don't know, another circus. It's like two circuses, two groups of clowns, like fighting each other. Do you know what I mean? And like, what clown is going to be in power today? And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's good to, like, what did I say here? I had to take a screenshot of this because I was laughing so much. I was just laughing my head off. I was doom scrolling on Facebook, I think. The absolute state of the British right. Like George Bush Sr., J.D. Vance has very shady connections to the CIA via his mentor, Peter Thiel, the creator of mass surveillance spy software Palantir. What have I said there? I don't actually remember writing this. Let's see. These people will bring more of the tyranny as we were proved correct about Epstein cover-up artist Trump. When are people ever going to learn? Like, do you know what's scary about it is that because Trump looks really ill. I don't know if people will see. There was a point a couple of weeks ago where Trump wasn't seen in public for a whole week. He was wearing makeup on his hand to cover up some kind of bruising that was occurring on his hand. And I don't mean a bruising like he banged his hand and it's come up in a bruise. I think it's like as if he's generally ill and as his body is basically failing. I saw Nick Cotton. He sent me a photo, and we put it up on the Telegram here. He sent me a photo of apparently there's been some kind of surgery done on Trump. He looks like he's got one of those, as if he's been smoking, you know, when people smoke a lot or whatever, and they have those like holes in their neck. He looks really old. If you really look at Trump properly, he's on his way out. I mean, how old is he? He's nearly 80, and Trump has never been in shape ever. He's just this rich guy that he knows he doesn't need to be in shape because he's a millionaire. He can get any woman he wants. You know, like he doesn't need to. Do you know what I mean? It's like Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein was a fat, disgusting slob. But he knows that he's got so much money and power that he can. We all know about the casting couch, how it works. He can sleep with anyone. All of those famous American beauty actresses, he's probably slept with them all. In order to get places. That's why I have no respect for actors. They're total. I mean, they say actors and prostitutes are practically the same thing, and they really are. They will do anything. I mean, some of them aren't even good actors or actresses. They're terrible. But they only get that it's not about your performance. It's not about how good you are at your craft. It's about what you're willing to do and how much you're willing to sell out. You can be relatively good as an artist of some sort, whether that's like a musician or whether that's an actor. That will get you to a certain crossroad. But then there's a fork in the road, and either you're an artist with principles and morals, in which that's the end of the road. You aren't going to get anywhere, and you will take the route that will basically lead you back down to where you started from. Or there's the other route where you will now have to do something that you do not like, right? But if you're power hungry and you're an attention whore, then you will do this, right? Yeah, Bohemian Grove, yeah. So all of those actors, all of them, no matter how masculine you think they are, like The Rock, for example, or whoever else, even Robert De Niro, all of these people, they've all done something. They've all had their casting couch moment, right? So Trump has never properly been in shape because he knows he basically has this power. Yeah, he's got a terrible diet. We've seen the stuff he eats. He consumes McDonald's, Diet Coke, all of this crap, right? Sylvester Stallone did porn. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to put that Sylvester Stallone video on I played the other day that I showed actual coverage because it was 9/11 anniversary recently, and I think we do need to properly celebrate 9/11. I think, well, not celebrate, but remember 9/11. Let's put it on. So Sylvester Stallone, he actually made a short video on the anniversary of 9/11 to commemorate it, and it really it was really something. Let me put it on. What's going on? It was really beautiful, actually. So this was the video. I got to go after this, guys. So there's going to be another show on in a few minutes after this. At 4 o'clock, and it's he was in porn, Sylvester Stallone, before. So this is the beautiful film I was talking about. Right, I'm gonna go after this.
a documentary. It's a serious documentary all by Scallone's self. Okay? I consulted no one.
September 11, 2001. The sun was shining. People were hustling and also bustling. They had no idea that September 11th would be the day they got 9/11. The day we got 9/11.
What are you laughing at? This is very serious.
I am
subject
crying.
matter.
American Flight 11 entered New York City airspace, and 9/11 the first tower. But moments later, like an hour, the second tower was also 9/11. The next building victim was the Pentagon.
They just got the Pentagon. It's official, sir. We're getting 9/11. I said, sure. They just got the Pentagon. It's official, sir. We're getting 9/11.
All that's left now is an upside-down water fountain and the names of the fallen at the 9/11 memorial. You know?
What is your problem? That is a very strange reaction to a very serious film that I made myself by myself.
I think on that note, I'm gonna go because it was 9/11 recently, and I said, there's a lot of people that are crying at the beauty of that film. Right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Obviously, stay tuned for another unprecedented show that is coming on. I don't know who it is, but obviously this is a new network, so we're going with it. But thank you all for watching. I am back next Tuesday, and no doubt there's going to be more craziness. Thank you all for watching, guys. I'll see most of you at some point, and have a good day. Take care, guys. Thank you very much for watching.